The title of my talk here is Estimating for Profit and Growth. To answer the question of what I'm going to be talking about, let me ask you this. Have you ever priced a job where you got finished with the job and you were like, did not charge enough? That's what I'm talking about. It's not about geeking out over numbers. It's about pricing your work so that you can actually thrive instead of just barely surviving. And when you suffer in your company, are you the only one that suffers? Your team and your family suffer with you. Tyson Landscaping did a job last fall. It's like a $700,000 backyard with a swimming pool, all this crazy stuff in a $500,000 house. Who would do a $700,000 backyard in a $500,000 house? He's never gonna get that money back out, but that wasn't why he was buying it. You know why he bought that? Because he said he has grandkids and he wants them to come to his house to hang out. That's what they're buying when they're writing that check. That's the emotional transaction that's happening. Welcome here, everybody. First point, knowing your numbers. Who thinks there should be a little more money in their account at the end of the year? We all do, right? What is the number one thing that prevents this from becoming true? Overhead. When you're doing a bid, you pretty much know your cost of labor, you pretty much know your cost of materials, but what can be really tricky is overhead. Overhead expenses are easy to overlook or underestimate. Here's my labor and materials, now how much do I need to charge for overhead? That's what budgeting answers. Unless you plan for this overhead though, it will crush the life out of your business. I've watched it happen over and over again. It will put you out of business if you don't pay attention to this. What most people are doing is taking their cost plus profit equals the customer's price. This is the correct formula. Cost plus overhead plus profit equals the customer's price. Cost and overhead together equal your break even. You don't make a nickel until you've covered those two together. Then your net profit, those three together equal your customer's price. This is why you cannot use square foot pricing or go on Facebook threads to see what other people are charging. You can't base your pricing off of that. It's because every one of you has a different business, different overhead expenses, different model, different equipment, different team. You pay yourself differently, etc. Every one of you has a different overhead number to revenue ratio, which is why you have to find this number for yourself. How do I find that number is in building a budget. But I have a free budgeting tool on the SynkedUP website that I can give you that will help you find your number. It's basically plug your numbers in, bam, it'll shoot you back what your numbers are going to be and what your pricing needs to be. The next thing I want to kind of talk about is a production rate, and this is kind of the replacement for square foot pricing. Production rates make it easy while adapting to the potential things that change, like difficulty of access. So you're not making good money on some and making no money on others, but your profit is not a variable, it's a constant when you use production rates instead of just straight across the board square foot pricing. And what a production rate is, it's a formula that helps you quickly calculate how much of something you need to do the job. Is another one. Using templates is kind of like the next thing after you have a production rate. Will drastically shorten the time it takes to build an estimate. And same thing, you can do this again in spreadsheets or in estimating software. One of the biggest entrepreneurial battles that we fight as owner-operators or as business owners is being the bottleneck in the business. Being the only guy that can deal with a customer complaint or produce a bid for a job. If you have templates and production rates and you're extracting those years of experience and knowledge out and into a production rate and a template, and now someone could come in here and just plug in measurements and produce an accurate bid, that removes you as the bottleneck of the company. That's the power of doing these things well. Yes, it takes time to set up a template and a production rate and get a pricing built into a system or a spreadsheet. But again, just remember, in a seasonal business, this is excellent winter work so that in April, May, June, July, when you don't have 3 seconds to spare and it's taking you 2 weeks to get back to a client with a bid and now you lost a job, this is what can make that difference. This is why it's worth investing time into this. On to the negotiating on scope and not on price. Don't associate your value of $1 to theirs. If you find yourself thinking like, dude, I would never spend 125 grand on this. People smell that. It bleeds through. Just remember, I am literally just here to deliver whatever they're asking for. My job is to listen to their intent. Maybe they're asking for something, but I pick up that their intent is something else, so I may suggest something that's better matched to their intent. Yes. I have a friend that runs an overhead garage door business. There's this spring on a garage door that the right way to do it costs $350 for specialty spring, but there's a cheap way to kind of jimmy rig it for $150. And this guy was saying, yeah, I can't see a charging $350 for the right spring, so I just do it this way, you charge them $150 and move on. I'm like, why are you making that distinction for the customer? If I was your customer, I'd want to know and I'd want to choose which one I want, because I don't want to be calling you in 3 years because some stupid spring broke on me again. I'd rather pay the $350 up front. The same principle applies when we're designing and building and estimating jobs for our customers is, what is their intent? Or you could do a simple outdoor kitchen with just a grill insert for 10, 15 grand, but you could do an all-out running water, cooler, and everything in it for 30 grand. You pick. And I may say, well, based on what you're you're telling me you want to hang out here with friends and family, is it going to be outdoor living space? I would recommend investing into that. Point is don't be making assumptions for your client based on what you think is worth spending money on. Let them make that distinction. Your job is to help them find what they want and then deliver and execute that for them. What I like to think on is budget tells me what my floor is, the numbers are what they are, turn around and burn that energy on selling that job, negotiating on scope and not on price. Negotiating on price is literally just doing the job for free. You may as well go to the lake with family for the day. My last point is job costing. Like I said earlier today, there's two ways to screw up the profit on a job. One is getting the numbers wrong. The second one is getting the quantities wrong. I thought it was gonna take me 3 days, but it took me 5. I thought it was gonna take me 20 tons of stone, but it took me 30. You can do the math perfectly, but if you're getting those quantities wrong like that in your estimate, you're still getting it wrong. You're still losing money, which is why it's so important to track your jobs. Having the ability to compare estimated versus actual hours and expenses and profits, etc., on every single job so that you can identify if you're missing the mark and course correct. How do I do this? Is just track all receipts for materials and subs. Throw them onto a job folder or in a software or in an app, and then tracking timesheet hours for time spent on the job. Bonus points if you track on each section of the job, like the patio versus the lighting versus the landscape, etc. Because then when you go way over hours on a big job, the $1 million question is, well, what part exactly? Maybe you nailed it on the patio, but you really went over on the landscape or whatever. It's really important to know what part needs change. And so if you're doing payroll by having your guys text you their hours at the end of the week and you have no idea what those hours went to, you've got to start tracking. The way we kind of adopted it at Tuscany Landscaping is every minute of payroll is allocated to something, a job. And we had an unbillable job for shop time. So if we were maintaining equipment or organizing the shop yard or whatever, we were clocked into unbillable shop time. I'm still getting paid, I'm still on payroll, but the company is now tracking how many of their hours on payroll every year are unbillable. Most people will sit in a talk like this and nod their heads, yep, job cost is important. What's the first thing that falls off your plate when life gets crazy? Plugging those numbers into something. It's either eat dinner with the family or spend another hour scraping your eyeballs out on a spreadsheet. Who's gonna do, which one are you gonna pick? What's really important is to make this easy and part of your daily process so that it just happens and it's not something that is an extracurricular activity. Not job costing is like aiming for the bullseye on a target, but you're never looking to see where you hit. You set it all down, put the crosshairs right on the bullseye and pull the trigger, but you never look where you hit. You could be completely missing the target, but if you never look where you hit, how are you gonna get better? You could be wildly missing it. And you might know in your gut that you're doing okay or not too great, but you don't actually know. I talk to a lot of people that say, yeah, I'm job costing. Oh, we job cost that job right there. Well, how much did you make? Well, we made out okay. I mean, no, how much did you make? Pretty good. It's dollars and cents. It's numbers, not pretty good or okay. So if you don't know the dollars and cents, you don't know. And it's really important that you do so that when you're always hitting low, you can course correct and bring it up closer to the bullseye. This is really important. And another thing that's really important about this is doing this in real time. I can't tell you, like I ran a crew for Tuscany Landscaping for many years. By the time we wrapped up the job and collected all the receipts and put all the information into the spreadsheet and actually got the estimated versus actual, it was a month later. And then when we didn't do so hot, salesperson or the owner, my boss is like, why do you think we didn't do so hot on that job? What do you think we need to change? I'm on my 5th job since then. I'm like, I don't know. Later in life, when we had the app and we were doing it estimated versus actual in real time, I could see in real time where we were at on both labor and materials. We're 3 days into a 5-day job and we're not even half done yet. I already know we're in trouble. The quality of the conversation changed dramatically between the team. Like, hey, we're busting our tail out here. We don't have enough hours. We didn't have enough hours in the estimate. Or maybe it was like materials showed up late. Wasn't anything we could really do about it, but they showed up late. Clients super picky. Things that we didn't really think about when we were bidding the job, and we're gonna go over hours. So now we know for the next time that let's think about some of these variables. If we're gonna have a pristine driveway to protect, let's factor that into how many hours we need to get the job done, or if it's poor access, or you name it. The point I'm making is job costing in any form or fashion is better than not job costing at all. But putting it in real time will 10x the value you get out of it. For us as the employees, it was such a morale booster to be pulling off of an awesome new job site. The client is thrilled. They're posting 5-star reviews. We got some beautiful shots on our phone of the finished product, and we're screenshotting that progress bar. We were only 87% of the way through the man hours, like fist bump. It was such a morale booster for us when we win. Who wants to play a game where there's no scorekeeping? Nobody. Job costing is like scorekeeping for your company's jobs, and it just makes it so much more fun. It brings up so much more of a ownership mentality for the team. I'm speaking from personal experience. When you can see the cause and effect, and you can contribute valuable ideas on how to get better and how to not screw up that way again the next time. So if you're looking for how to generate more of an ownership mentality with your employees, this is one way to do it, and I can say that speaking as an employee. Stepping back, all of these slides so far have been a lot of how, a lot of nuts and bolts, like do this, do that, build this spreadsheet, or use this estimating system, or compare this and compare that. It's a lot of nuts and bolts, but sidestepping for a moment, what's the definition of insanity? Who's guilty of it? We all are, in some form or fashion. How are we gonna not do the same thing over and over again? The only way is action. Knowledge is only potential. The only thing that matters is what you actually end up doing. Sometimes when you go to an event, you get so inspired, or you're gonna go home and do these 10 different things, just pick one and go home and actually see that through and implement it. Discipline yourself to pick that one thing, implement it, then you can go to thing number 2 and thing number 3 and thing number 4, but one thing at a time. 1% better every day equals incredible change. Building systems and processes is hard work. It's just the reality of it. I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat it, but it's so worth it. The time and energy you invest in it will 10x return on you. Rip off the Band-Aid. Growth is painful. This is a QR code to that free budgeting tool. You just plug in your sales and your labor and your materials, etc., and it will spit back out to you what your man-hour rate needs to be, what your overhead recovery rate needs to be. Or you can skip to the front of the line and automate these numbers in your business. Like, that's why we built SynkedUP. We were dealing with these issues using 3 or 4 softwares at the time, using spreadsheets, and it was just a manual nightmare, which is what inspired us to build SynkedUP, which is an app that helps you track your jobs, estimate your jobs, budget. You're just building work areas and entering measurements, and bam, all the math is happening for you.